Hi guys, I'm Malcolm Allen. I'm a Biosecurity Officer with the Otago Regional Council. I'm joined today by Peter Preston, a local pest control contractor, and we're demonstrating today how you can safely and effectively use Pindone pellets and bait stations to control low numbers of rabbits on your property.
An effective poison suitable for controlling rabbits in both urban and rural areas is Pindone. Pindone is a slow-acting poison which requires baits to be consumed over several days in order for it to be effective. This means that rabbits must consume multiple feeds in order for it to be fatal, so if a pet or child or native animal accidentally ingests it, they're less likely to be harmed. There's also an antidote, vitamin K1, which is available from the vets, which helps reduce dangers to stock and domestic pets as well. Pindone can be purchased from rural supply stores as a liquid Pindone or Pindone pellets. Liquid Pindone is generally used to lace diced carrot bait as a form of primary control to reduce high rabbit numbers in winter months throughout New Zealand, whereas Pindone pellets are factory made and they're available for immediate use and can be used in bait stations without an approved handler certificate or a controlled substance licence.
So if you wanted to broadcast Pindone pellets on the ground outside your station, you'd need an approved handler or a CSL, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, Malk. The only method that can be used without a CSL or approved handler is the use of Pindone pellets in a bait station, and that's why we've chosen to look at this method in a bit more detail today.
Nice. Any other key info we should know about these products before we get stuck in?
In most situations, you wouldn't be using bait stations as a form of primary control to knock down high rabbit numbers. They're better suited to managing low numbers as either a follow-up to a primary control or as an ongoing maintenance tool to help keep numbers low. Another thing to note is it's important to match the type of bait you're using to the natural feed conditions in your area, because rabbits are very sensitive to changes in their surroundings. So a dry bait such as Pindone pellets should be ideally used in dry months when the natural feed conditions are also dry.
Thanks Pete, always handy to know when the optimal time is to use these different methods and to maximise your effectiveness and yeah, get better bang for your buck, I guess.
Exactly. It's also recommended you undertake control work in collaboration with your neighbours. You'll get a better effect. However, if you're going to work by yourself, please make sure that you notify your neighbours of what you're up to and anyone else who might access your property and see the bait stations.
Too easy, must be about time for a bit of a demo, eh?
Sure is. So first things first, let's locate all signs of rabbits on our property, particularly areas where rabbits might be feeding or grazing, as that's the placement of the bait stations will be vital to the success.
Okay, well I know rabbits prefer short pasture and usually graze it quite low, so let's keep an eye out and watch out for scratchings and other pasture sign. So what's the best spot to set up our bait station and how do we make sure it stays put?
Well, the good thing about bait stations is they're very easy and safe to move around. There are still a few things you need to consider when selecting your sites. Ensure your livestock and domestic animals can't access the bait station sites, so this may require moving stock out of the block in advance and making sure your pets don't get access to the stations during the time they're out. Please make sure the bait stations are carefully secured, wires or pegs to help reduce spillage, and be aware that other pests such as possums and rats will also take bait from the bait stations, so it's worth putting up some possum traps and rat traps if you think there might be an issue in your area. Rabbits are sensitive to changes in their surroundings, so it's important to put your stations out without any bait for at least 10 days to help rabbits get used to them. And it'll also increase your chances of interaction with the bait stations. You also want to scratch some dirt up around the bait stations. The fresh dirt will help attract rabbits to the station. Do not place bait stations near waterways to avoid accidental contamination.
Okay, well we've done all our pre-op application checks there, Pete. What's next?
Well, we'll grab our stations and our Pindone pellets, but of course before we do that, we'll check the label for what PPE we should be having on and check any precautions on the safety data sheet. And of course we won't be eating or drinking or smoking until we've finished and washed our hands.
Oh no, good stuff. Let's get into it. Okay, so how many pellets will we need to fill up a bait station, Pete?
Bait stations should only be filled to 1/3 of their capacity with the feeding holes turned to the side.
And bait should be applied to the station multiple times, is that correct?
Yes, correct. This is known as pulse feeding. You want to monitor your bait every couple of days and keep refilling the bait until the take ceases. This will ensure that all rabbits in the area have access to the bait. Dominant rabbits will limit access to the bait by subordinate rabbits during the first few feeds.
Right, so there's no need to check your bait stations every day.
No, however, closing your bait stations during the day when wet weather is forecasted, then reopening them at night when rabbits are most active is strongly recommended. This will help to minimise non-target interaction and protect the bait from moisture or exposure to the elements, which will make it less palatable.
Is it true that the baits are dyed green to protect bird life and other non-target species?
Yeah, that's right, Malcolm. It's still necessary to take care when you're doing the poisoning to minimise risk to non-targets like hawks. So to reduce the risk to hawks, you pick up any carcasses that are lying around and either bury them or dispose of them so hawks don't have access to them until they're completely broken down and no longer palatable.
Good to know. So after bait take ceases, is it safe to pack up the bait station and move on?
Well, it's actually best to leave them out for a while after the bait take has ceased, just to make sure you remove all the bait out of them. The area will need to be rechecked after a couple of weeks, and if the rabbit sign's still around, you might want to refill them and do it again.
Okay, what do you do with any leftover bait that's uneaten?
Any bait that's reusable can be put into a labelled container, secure. Any unusable bait should be either disposed of at a rubbish tip or buried.
Is it safe to return stock to the area once you've removed all your bait?
Yeah, as long as you make sure there's no bait left in the area, it's perfectly fine to put stock back.
Great, thanks so much for your help there again today, Peter. Hopefully we've answered a lot of questions out there in the community about this method and that people feel comfortable to give it a go. But don't forget, this is just one of the range of tools in the rabbit management toolbox. Control should be tailored to meet the conditions of the property, the rabbits you're dealing with. And if you require further information about the use of Pindone pellets and bait stations and other rabbit control methods, check out the rabbit page on our pest hub, or get in touch with one of our biosecurity team via the 0800 number. We hope you have enjoyed this video, and be sure to check out the other videos in this series. Thanks for watching.